Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Run Yogi Diaries. This is your host, Santosh Shiva. Over the last 2 years, I've had the privilege of talking to some amazing people, day-to-day people, who are on an extraordinary journey of well-being through endurance sports. I hope you took some possibility back into your lives, took some action, and maybe some inspiration to perspire. If you're on this channel for the first time today, please do consider subscribing to it. Leave your comments if you think you took something away or you had some thoughts about today's conversation. And remember to like the video if you liked it. Very stoked to have in the show today, Polly Niravath. Someone who's been on an incredible journey of endurance for the last decade plus, and more recently completed her first Ironman in 2022. And the story behind that is incredible. So we get behind the scenes and find out how she did it all. Let's dig in. Hey Polly, welcome to Run Yogi Diaries.
Hello, thank you so much, Santosh, for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's not every day you get to meet a person of Indian origin, woman that has just completed a Ironman, which is pretty exciting, very inspiring. So, we obviously are going to get into all of that. But more than anything else, I'll take a quick stab at introducing you here. Polly, you were born in India originally, in Kerala, and educated, studied in California, and now you're a medical professional here in Houston area, and has been doing marathons and triathlons for the last 12 years. You're a mother, you have a family, and all the good stuff. So did I miss something?
No, I would say you got it all. I'm very blessed, I would say. Yes.
Perfect. Great. So obviously, Polly, we are here to get behind the scenes on your journey, and maybe in the process learn a couple of things that we can take away. So maybe we should do a bit of a flashback and get started with how it all started for you. Why did you get into endurance sports in the first place? And give us a sense.
Okay, yeah. So it wasn't really a natural progression for me, I would say, by any means, meaning that I was never an athletic person growing up. As a kid, I think, we focused a lot on studies and academics, never really did sports or group sports to speak of. And then when I became a doctor, I was constantly telling my patients that exercise is so important. And I was always saying to almost everybody, at least 30 minutes a day is so important. I'm an oncologist, so all patients are cancer survivors. And so I'm always telling them that 30 minutes a day of exercise reduces the risk of cancer recurrence, which is very true. And after some time, I said it so much, and I heard myself saying it every day. And I said, Polly, you don't do this yourself. How can you be telling people every day to do this if you're not doing it? So that's when I started running routinely. I started with just a little bit of running in the evenings usually. And I really loved it. Turns out that I just took to it quickly. I started out with just doing run walk intervals, and I liked the improvement that I was seeing. I think I'm somebody who tends to be pretty goal oriented. So I liked the fact that I was getting better and better at it, and started setting more and more small goals for myself. And then I finally decided, okay, I want to do a 5K. And to me, that was a big deal at the time, So I signed up for a 5K that was about an hour away from my house, and I trained for this, and I drove an hour away just to do a 5K, which now to me seems crazy, right? That's like barely my warm up now. And I was super excited because you get all the adrenaline of the race, you have all the people around you. It was my first experience doing that. And I was able to run the entire 5K without walking, which was a big deal for me at the time. And then I just loved it. And I started setting other goals for myself. I said, I wonder if I can do a 10K and then a half marathon. And then I did my first full marathon, the Chevron Houston Marathon. I don't know. I guess that was probably maybe 2017, I think was my first one.
Mm.
Um, and I loved it. I was just hooked. By that time, I had really gotten into running. And I just enjoyed it so much. And I kept on doing the marathon almost every year. And then kind of decided that I wanted to do maybe just a little bit more.
Yeah. So before you go there,
Mhm.
so let's dial back a little bit. So a couple of things that
Mhm.
you said, I want to double click a little bit. So
Yeah.
first off, fascinating that to hear from an oncologist that risks of cancer remissions are lower with exercise. So can you talk to that a little bit? I mean, why is that? What prevents that? Are you at liberty
Okay.
to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a great question. So, yeah, the data tells us that specifically for certain types of cancer, exercise is so much more important.
Hmm.
Specifically, I'm a breast cancer specialist, so all my patients have breast cancer. The data there is really clear that for even people who don't have cancer at this point, if you exercise for at least 30 minutes a day, your chance of getting cancer is significantly lower. The same thing is true for uterine cancer and colon cancer. Both of those are
Mhm.
known to be very much tied to exercise risk. And the reason that we think that this works out this way is for a couple of reasons. One is that exercise does release a whole bunch of anti-inflammatory cytokines.
Hmm.
Cytokines are just these markers in your blood that can either promote inflammation or they can actually decrease inflammation.
Hmm.
Exercise is known to be very anti-inflammatory, and we know that cancer is a very inflammatory process for the most part. So
Hmm.
we think that that decrease in inflammation over time actually helps reduce the risk of cancer. The other thing is that most of these cancers, the breast, uterine, and colon cancer, they are all related to weight too. When you're
Hmm.
more overweight, you have higher risk of all of those cancers.
Hmm.
So perhaps the running or any kind of exercise keeps you at a healthy body weight, which then also reduces the risk of cancer too.
Hmm. Hmm. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I think that's something that we don't talk about a lot. We talk about exercise and correlation to heart disease and diseases of such as blood pressure and sugar and those kind of things. But very rarely one talks about correlation of exercise and reducing the risk of cancer, which is great to hear. For folks who are
Mhm.
listening to this, who are all active, mostly people who listen to this podcast are people who are active people, and that's an additional incentive to stay consistent and push your envelope. And
Definitely.
so coming back to your journey, right? So couch to 5K, how long did it take for you?
Um, that I would say probably back then, that probably took me about 3 months or so to get to that point
Hmm.
where I felt comfortable doing the 5K.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then you went on to do the 10K and then half marathon. And so, was there someone that inspired you in this journey, or were you just kind of self learning? How did you scale? I mean, how did you prep your body to do more?
So for that initial running part, no, I just really got into it. I loved it. And I started reading about it a lot and just
Hmm.
learning everything I could. I was kind of like a sponge and soaked up everything about, the nutrition that you needed, the
Hmm.
exercise, the warm-ups, the strength training, all those things, and the idea of run walk intervals and how to get
Hmm.
faster. And so I just kind of read a lot and really got into it. And then we got so into it, both my husband and I. So once he saw me
Hmm.
running, he kind of got inspired
Oh.
and he started to do it a little bit too. And then we both got really into it and helped each other a lot with what we were
Hmm.
doing. All the things we learned, we would go running together a lot. And then a lot of our neighbors saw us. This is like, it's like contagious, right? And then they got kind of interested in this. And so we actually started a group similar to what you have where we had about probably 15 or 20 neighbors that we would all get
Hmm.
together on Tuesday and Thursday nights and do a run together. So
Hmm.
we kind of formed this informal running group, and then we kind of all started doing it together. But
Yeah.
that took probably a couple years to form.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, and the social aspect of running always pushes everybody to take on more, right? Uh, and well, while you were doing this, right, while you were scaling,
Mhm.
can you think of maybe a couple or three top things that worked for you, as you were building your capacity to do more, and as you were calibrating your nutrition, what top three, maybe, if not more, that worked for you?
Yeah,
Or
sure, sure. Well, I definitely made a whole bunch of mistakes in the beginning, like I think most of us do, right? And so you learn from those. One of the things that was big for me was that, especially running here in Houston, it's very hot during much of the year.
Mm,
And in the beginning, I really didn't understand the importance of the electrolytes and the carbohydrates when you run. So
mm,
I eventually started taking water with me because I realized I was sweating so much. But after all my long runs, I had these horrible headaches and I would have to, kind of lay down and sleep. And it was almost debilitating for much of the day. I would lose half
mm,
my day because of this headache after the run, which was not very feasible. And I've met a lot of other people who have that same issue. And I think a lot of us don't realize that even if you're drinking water, that's not enough.
mm,
Usually, after about 40 to 45 minutes of running, you deplete most of your glycogen stores, meaning the glycogen is what gets converted to carbohydrates, right? So if you're not repleting those, if you're not giving your body back what it needs after that 30 to 40 minutes, you're really running on nothing. At that point,
mm,
then you're just trying to burn fat, which is not a very effective fuel for running.
mm, mm,
And it takes a big toll on your body. You're also losing a lot of the electrolytes when you sweat.
mm,
So, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and these are all very harmful for you during the run because then afterwards, as your body's trying to recover, you just don't have enough fluid and electrolytes to fully recover. And that's
mm,
typically what causes this heat exhaustion or dehydration. So I started running with energy drinks. So
mm,
specifically, there's so many out there, right? The one that I happen to like is Scratch, but there's many of them: Gatorade, Scratch, Noon. There's a whole list of them. Um, and what I found is that when I started running with those and keeping a gel with me, and I had like a little running belt or a backpack, either way, and I would carry these running gels that are each about 100 calories. And I would do those running gels about every 40 minutes or so,
mm,
and then really it was like magic. Not only was my pace getting faster, I wouldn't get those headaches, I wouldn't get that exhaustion afterwards. Actually, I would feel great, and I think
mm,
running was the way that it was supposed to be once I was getting this proper nutrition with the fluids, the salts, and the carbohydrates, all those
mm,
things.
mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was definitely probably the biggest learning curve,
Mm,
and that took some time to get there, but now I've pretty much got that down. Um, I think the other thing that really helped me a lot was when I discovered this whole concept of zone two running. So for a
mm,
long time, I would go out and just think, oh yeah, I've got to just hit it hard. I'm going to try to get faster, and I got to watch at some point, right? So I was looking at my watch and saying, oh yeah, I got to hit this pace. And then I really started doing some more reading, educating myself, and I realized that that's not truly how you get faster, just going out there
mm,
and trying to kill yourself on every run. Really, I started monitoring my heart rate more. I got a chest strap to actually accurately measure the heart rate. And I keep within what's called the zone two heart rate, meaning, not too high, but it's usually typically about somewhere between 50 to 60% of your maximum heart rate.
mm.
And you stay there. It's a nice conversational pace. It's really easy. You feel like you could run forever. And all my long runs are now at this zone two pace pretty much,
Mhm.
which has built up my fitness so much. I've noticed
Mhm.
that since I started doing this heart rate based running, my resting heart rate is lower. My resting heart rate is now like 52, whereas previously when I was running tons and tons of miles, it was like in the high 60s still because I
Mm.
wasn't getting that efficiency of the machine, right? Every time the
Yeah.
heart pumped, it wasn't getting enough. But this trains my heart to actually pump more efficiently, keeping at that zone two rate. And then, one or two times a week, I'll build in a few speed workouts where I'll have some high intensity
Mhm.
intervals, of course, and that's how I build in the speed. But a good 80% of my work is now in this zone two, which was
Mhm.
a huge leap forward for me too.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree on that one, because I'm a big, well, I would proponent, as well as someone who uses the Maffton method, which is similar to Zone Two. the MAF method, which is the approach to the heart rate, is a slightly different one, but the principles are the same, which is really training at your aerobic threshold versus pushing yourself into that gray zone or the dead zone, as many
Right.
coaches call it, right? Which is no
Hmm.
returns on investment at those efforts. That makes
Exactly.
perfect sense. And so um, so this was happening. You signed up for half marathon. Now signing up for a full marathon is usually a huge jump for most people.
Hmm.
It's a mental leap of faith. So how
It
did that
was. It
happen
was
for
scary.
you? Describe to us that moment. How did it just happen suddenly? Was it an impulse, or was it something? How did it happen for you? How did you sign up for a full?
No, I mean, I thought about it quite a bit because I'll tell you that I was definitely nervous about this, quite nervous. But my MO in general, I guess, the way I operate is that sometimes if I think I want to do something, even if I'm not sure that I can do it, I'll
Hmm.
just kind of buckle down and just do it. I'll sign up for something and it's going to be months away. And then in my mind, that makes it very real. Then I have to train for this and I will get to that goal. Like no matter
Hmm.
what, I'm going to figure it out. But just signing up for it really helps me. And one of the things that I found actually that's really helpful, it was kind of an unexpected, nice side benefit of
Hmm.
this whole endurance journey is that my kids were actually seeing me do this the whole time, right? So
Hmm.
this is the funny thing about being a parent, right? Is that sometimes you're doing things and you don't really realize that your kids are watching. But the truth
Hmm.
is that our kids, no matter how old they are, they always see what we're doing and they're taking it in, right?
Yeah.
So they saw me, and they knew that, running, I was kind of getting better, but I was working at it and putting in all this time.
Hmm.
Most of my runs I do early in the morning because the kids are not awake yet. That's the time that nobody else wants. So I wake up at 4:30, get my runs in, and then I can do everything else I have to for the rest of the day, but it hasn't taken away from family or work or anything else.
Hmm.
And so they were seeing this dedication and all of this. And even when things were scary for me, it was well out of my comfort zone to do a
Hmm.
marathon, definitely. And they knew that. And I think having seen me take so many of these steps towards things that I really wasn't
Hmm.
ready for, and I was scared of, but I
Yeah.
decided to do it anyway and figure out how to make it work and make a plan. That's affected them. So now my older daughter is 14 years old, and she actually her one of her main passions is music. She loves music.
Hmm.
She's a drummer, so she's constantly drumming. And her second passion is actually exercise. She loves it.
Hmm.
So she is a rare bird, meaning that, she's a teenager who will actually get up in the morning before school. She will do her whole run and she
Wow.
runs all the time. She'll run up to 3 to 5 miles in the morning, shower and then get on the bus and go to school. And she loves it. And she's done herself now 2 half marathons already at
Wow.
14, and she's kind of got that same. I love it because it gives her that work ethic, right? Where
Hmm.
she sets a goal for herself and then she figures out how she's going to get there and then she does it, which then I've seen that translate into everything else for her.
Hmm.
Because you have to do that in schoolwork, in life, I mean, whatever you want. You have
Yeah.
to have the discipline to set a goal, even if it's outside of your comfort zone, and then see the joy of actually achieving that goal, right?
Hmm.
So that was just, I think, a huge benefit for the kids in general. And then my little one, she is 11 years old now, and same thing for her. She's gotten into triathlon, and so she does
Wow.
sprint triathlons. She's a great swimmer. She swims circles around me all the time. She's
Wow.
awesome. Um, and yeah, and she's gotten several awards at some of these local triathlons that she does. And then same thing for her. In the
Yeah.
beginning, it was very scary, the idea of doing all this, but I think teaching them to try things that they're not comfortable with, which is what I forced myself to do, they actually pick that up just by seeing me, not with me really
Yeah.
telling them, but just
Hmm.
from seeing the example.
Yeah. Walk the talk. Walk the talk, mom.
Yeah, I guess so, right? It turned out that way, which is
Don't tell
I'm
me to do
thrilled
the
about.
homework. Show me how you do
Yeah,
it.
exactly, exactly.
So here's I
Yeah.
do it. Here's how I do it. I get up in the morning, go for my run. I have a plan.
Yes.
Absolutely makes total sense. So the other thing, Polly, is also um, role models, right? Because South Asian, especially for us, South Asians, um, I don't think you see many women of our previous generation doing marathons and Ironman. It's not common. There are exceptions, of course, but it's not common. It's not common for kids of our community to see women of a certain age go out and do these things, which is, in my opinion, part of self-care, right? And you see men, you don't see women. So it's also a huge, what's the thing called? It's kind of a breaking the ceiling in that sense, right? Because you're suddenly seeing a woman who is a professional, who's a mother, who has a lot of things going on in her life, but also is focused on her own care and her own passions. It's just not about the old our Indian movies portraying women as those hardworking martyrs who sacrifice everything for. So that's a huge change as well,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yes, and I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important because I think for example, for me, I can speak for myself. When I'm, in that routine of doing my exercise, I pretty much exercise every day. And when I get that exercise, it's very true that I'm in a better mood. I'm
Hmm.
happier. I have all those endorphins, swimming around in my brain, the serotonin, the dopamine, everything else that exercise gives you. So I'm a better mom. I'm a better doctor. I'm just a better
Yep.
person, to be around. Um, and I think it also helps me focus a lot too. That's something that's a
Yep.
big thing. I love to multitask, which is, I think, the only way you can get things done, right? So I'm
Yep.
always doing multiple things at the same time. But I noticed that when I'm exercising regularly, I'm able to do that much better. My mind is
Mm.
just sharper, my memory is clearer, so I can just execute things a little bit better. So I
Yep.
think the exercise, it really actually gives you back more than the
Yep.
investment that you put into it. Especially for
Yep.
me, the time is early in the morning, not really missing that time from anything anyway, but it gives me back so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, and again, I'm speaking very specifically from a South Asian experience point of view, is that as we get older, first off, our foods are very rich. Food. Our food is
Hmm.
very rich in carbs. We all either are rice eaters or wheat eaters. If you're from north, if you're in the south, you eat white rice eaters, and our
Hmm.
food is good. So we love
Yeah,
to eat.
right.
And as you get older, uh, your metabolism is reducing, your muscle mass is reducing, and you can see it. You can see it on people's faces and bodies. You can see aging accelerated after a certain age,
Hmm.
and that's the other thing, right? Because um, when you take on something like endurance sports, it forces you to take care of yourself, not just not to just look good, but also because you want to go do those events, and therefore you're trying to stay strong, you're trying to stay fit, you're trying to stay clean, and that has a huge impact to your overall ability to function for a longer time, right?
Oh,
um
definitely. Yes, yes. I mean,
so
I think so for sure. I mean, the health benefits of doing regular exercise are so tremendous, right? And they pay off for decades, literally. Just keeping yourself strong, healthy, independent. All those things matter, I think, as we get older.
yeah.
But I think part of that too, I would say for myself, is we have to actually honestly think about what are the priorities that we have in life, because
Hmm.
with as much exercise as both myself and my husband do,
Hmm.
what that means is at some point we had to decide that, you know what, it's okay if the house is not totally spotless, which, I mean,
Hmm.
you'd be surprised, but a lot of us get hung up on these things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you think about it, like, okay, so if the dishes are going to sit in the sink for one extra night, is that really going to do anything?
Yeah.
Really nothing is going to happen from that, right? Versus if I put aside my own fitness, right, and I'm just
Hmm.
kind of not being healthy, this is going to have very serious long-term consequences in
Yes.
terms of cardiovascular health, risk of diabetes, I mean, everything, right?
Yes.
Um, so truly just reminding ourselves what is more important, I think is a big deal. And we have to
Yeah.
actually retrain your brain in the beginning because we're also kind of, I guess, accustomed to thinking in one way,
Yeah.
right? In our culture.
Terrific. Yeah. So all great stuff. So coming back to your journey. So you signed up. You're a driven person. You like to put goals. You got to go after it. So you signed up for a marathon. And so how
Mhm.
was your first marathon? How was the experience?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I just loved it. I think the Houston Marathon, the Houston crowd is really, I mean, one of the best out there. So it was just electric. For most of my initial little races that I was doing, I didn't always have my family come up because, it's
Hmm.
a lot of time and sometimes they were far away. But for this one, they did come up and it was so special. It was a great celebration to cross the finish line, see my husband and my kids there. And just, it was such a good culmination of all this work I had done, something that I wasn't even sure that I could do. And afterwards, I remember being completely pooped, so tired. And I was like, how do people do this at the tail end of an Ironman? I remember thinking that at the time, like, oh my gosh, I don't think I could ever do that. But I loved it. It was just the happiest and most tired I had been.
Yeah. And how long did you train for the first marathon?
Um, oh gosh, that one, quite some time. I mean, I had been training for
Right.
obviously a while, but I think from the time that I really signed up for the marathon and trained for it in earnest, it was probably about a good 8 months or so.
Hmm. Good. It's a
Yeah.
good time. Good time
Mhm.
for folks who are listening to this, right? 8 months is an ideal time, I would say, to
Yeah.
kind of build up your base and get ready for the 26.2 miles and enjoy the experience, not have a sufferfest, right?
Oh, yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and so you went on to do other marathons after that.
Yes. Yes. So I did the Houston Marathon, I think almost every year after that,
Hmm.
pretty much. And then there's also this really fun marathon that's out in Detroit. It's cool because you start in Detroit, but then you take this big tunnel into Canada and you end up in Windsor, Canada.
Hmm. Heard about that.
And that was a beautiful one. And then you come back on this gorgeous bridge too. So I did that one as a fun little destination marathon. Um, and then mostly that's, yeah, the Houston every year. And then this additional Detroit one was the one that I did. Yeah.
Nice. And then you got bored.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at some point, you realize, okay, you've gotten faster. You have no doubt in your mind that you can finish the 26.2 miles, right? So you just kind of want to look for the next thing. And
Yeah.
I had always been having this kind of tickle in my head of, maybe I should try an Ironman or get into triathlon. I was very tri curious, but I didn't know how to swim. This was the
Hmm.
big problem, right? Because a triathlon is obviously swim, bike, and run. Um, and as I was telling you before, swimming was actually a big obstacle for me because when I was a child, I drowned twice, so I was
Ooh.
terrified of water. Yeah, and one of these drownings was actually very bad. I was at my cousin's house, and somehow I was a small child. I got into the pool somehow, not knowing how to swim. And actually, I had needed CPR and everything after I got pulled out of the water.
Ooh.
So that's one of my earliest memories as a child, actually. And so for a long, long time, I just stayed away from water. I was just terrified of it almost instinctually. I just never wanted to get in the water. Um, and then what happened was I thought, I really want to just do this. I want to figure this out.
So let's
And
double click on that. Let's zoom
mhm,
in that a little bit, right? Which is
mhm,
this is very powerful because this is something many people deal with. Uh,
yes.
so zoom in a little bit about how did you how did you empower yourself to kind of say I'm going to take a risk because you're scared of something, and then you have how did you find the courage?
Yeah. So again, I think it's just one of those things where I just decided that it's time I got over this fear. To be
Uh,
honest, I think I was sick of being scared of water because it
mm,
does get in the way of things, right? So,
right.
if you want to do fun things like going snorkeling or even just like playing on the beach, that
Yeah.
anxiety can take over. And I don't like the idea of being scared of something where I know I don't need to be scared of that. It's not
Mm,
really a true logical fear. So this was actually one of the ways for me to decide that I'm going to get over it. So
mm,
I did what I typically do. I just signed up for a simple sprint triathlon that was local. And I said, okay, by the time I do this triathlon, I need to learn how to swim. There's no other option. And I just
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
box myself into it and make myself do it. And so then I got swim lessons with a really great coach. And he was really wonderful about kind of helping me take down that anxiety, learning that I really had nothing to be worried about. And after a few months, I actually got okay at swimming to the point where I could at least move and I wasn't drowning.
Mm.
It's moving in the right direction. Um, and so then I did that first sprint triathlon, which was a mess. It was very, very fun, but I look back on it now and I laugh at myself because it was in a pool. I didn't want to do open water yet. I wasn't ready for that. And I was literally the last person out of the water. I was so, so slow. Everyone else had already gotten out because during that, even in that pool, I had to stop and hold the side for a little bit, catch my breath and calm myself because you still have nerves when you're in the water, when you feel that way about water.
Yeah.
And then as I was finishing, everyone around the pool was cheering me on and they were all so excited to see me get out and move on to the bike. And it was just great. It was a good feeling of community. I loved it. Nobody was annoyed that I was taking this long in the water for something so simple, right? For most of them, this was something that they could almost do with their eyes closed, right? But
Mm.
everybody was super supportive. And then from there, I just got more and more comfortable and started to work on my swimming skills, and it just got better from there.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest obstacle for most people is the swim. For people who have not have not been trained in swimming when they were growing up. Same thing with me. I started triathlons last year. Had to while I could survive in water, I couldn't really do front crawl and laps and stuff like that. So I had to put myself out there. It's frustrating. I don't know how
Yes.
it was for you, but it is frustrating.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yes. I mean, I would say it's still a work in progress learning how to
Yeah,
swim. I mean, I'm constantly trying to improve my stroke. And it's a labor of love. If you didn't learn it as a kid, it takes a very long
yeah,
time to learn it. Yeah, for
yeah. There's a
sure.
lot of unlearning to be done just to get balance. But the message I want to give our listeners is you got to stick with it, and it comes through. It comes together at some point. At least for me, it was like just going out there in the pool and doing those drills.
Yes.
Just doing it like a machine, and at some point, it just clicks.
Yes, yes, it is so true. You will have the breakthrough eventually if you
Yeah.
just stick with it long enough. I think I'm a perfect example of that because I'll tell you that not being a naturally very athletic person, I think it does take me quite some time to learn new physical skills.
Hmm.
So this really, I had to stick with it for a long time. But if you really do it and you really want to learn it, it will happen. And then actually, some of our neighbors have gotten into swimming too recently. And I've seen the same thing with them. I mean, the ones who are willing to actually do it, it may take a year or more to really feel comfortable, but
Yeah.
eventually it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrific. So you signed up for sprints, and
Mhm.
that's a great takeaway. Because if someone is wondering, how do I get started? I think the best way to get started is pick a sprint triathlon 6 months down the line or 4 months down the line, and put that at stake and work backwards. It's probably the
Exactly.
best way to do it, right? Because
Yes. And that's,
uh,
yes,
otherwise, you just don't confront your fears. You're just going to sit back and be in your comfort zone and say, "Well, why should I?"
exactly. Otherwise, you just say, oh, I'll learn how to swim later, right?
Yeah,
But when
yeah,
you actually have something staring you in the face on the calendar and you're like, I got to figure it out by then, it's
yeah,
great motivation, to get going and get it all done. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And a good little tip, if anybody's kind of, try curious and thinking about this, is they have super sprint triathlons, which are made really with people in mind who don't like to swim. And the
Hmm.
swims can often be as short as 200 meters or 300 meters, which is really quite short. You can
Hmm.
typically get through that pretty easily. And more than anything, I think it's just building confidence. Getting through
Hmm.
that first swim helps so much in terms of just making yourself realize that you can do it.
So great. So sprint triathlons happening, and I guess you probably did some Olympic distances as well. And half iron was next, or did you just say, "I'm just going to the full iron"? Or-
Actually, so this is an interesting story. So I did an Olympic triathlon, which was my first open water swim.
Mm.
Got more comfortable with that by then. And then I said, you know what? I just want to do a full Ironman. And so um, I signed up for the full Ironman in, gosh, that would be 2019, the Ironman Texas in 2019, mostly because I had a friend, again, one of my neighbors in our running community, who she is also an Indian woman, and she had done an Ironman. And
Mm.
she was the first person who really got me thinking of, you know what? Maybe this is something I actually can do.
Mm.
She had trained for about a year and, did her first Ironman just the year before that in 2018. And then I said, wow, this is so amazing. She told me a lot about her whole journey and really encouraged me. And she, like me, was not somebody who was very athletic as a child either, and kind of just picked it up and was able to do it. And so that gave me the courage to finally sign up. And then
Mm.
I did. And I spent about a little under a year, maybe about 10 months or so, training for that Ironman. Um, and what happened was that I did not have a very fancy bike, and it was a very windy day. So on that day, I finished the swim, which was fantastic. I finished,
Mm.
you have to, in the Ironman, just to give everybody an idea, you have to finish every leg within a certain period of time.
Mm.
So the swim is 2.4 miles, and you have to finish it in 2 hours and 20 minutes, which thankfully I did that, and not with that much time to spare. I think I finished in about 2 hours. It was a pretty slow swim. But I finished it. I was so excited. I got on the bike, and then I missed the bike cutoff. You have to finish the bike within a certain time. I missed it by 4 minutes, and I was
Oh.
just heartbroken. Um, and it was actually a very good lesson, though. Again,
Mm.
thinking as a parent, this was something that my kids saw, a huge setback, because they knew how
Mm.
hard I had been working, training every day, right, for all this time, learning how to swim and all this stuff. And they saw that I didn't make it. And they saw me just go back to the drawing board after that, right? So
Mm.
it was definitely a failure, something that I was really disappointed in. But I just decided to go back and work harder. And then I got a better bike, which helped a lot. I got a triathlon bike, which is a little more aerodynamic. Really worked on my speeds in swimming and biking.
Mm.
Got a lot stronger. And then in 2020, the Ironman was canceled.
Mm.
So because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So I still kept on training. I said, no problem. It just gives me more time to get stronger. And then in 2021, for Ironman Texas, it was again canceled for COVID.
Yeah.
But I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so my husband, Tarun, helped me, and we set up an entire Ironman course in our neighborhood, which was amazing. It was fantastic. We set up a 2.4 mile swim in a lake that we have nearby. And then from there, we had a 112-mile bike ride course that we had made, and we had test rode it together before. And then we had a whole marathon course right here in our neighborhood. And it was the funnest day. It was
Mm.
amazing. So this whole big run crew that we have of about 20 people, they were all excited for us to do it. Myself and actually the husband of my friend who had done the Ironman, he wanted to do his first Ironman too. So we had been training together. And so he and I basically had this exclusive Ironman race that was literally
Wow.
set up just for the two of us. And our friends had volunteered all along the course. They set up rest stops on the bike and on the run, and they were like cheering for us. They had signs. It was fantastic. And it was just really, I mean, it was the most encouraging and fun day. I think the whole time, I don't think I ever stopped smiling, because everywhere I
Wow.
looked, I would see, my kids, my husband, my friends, my neighbors, my parents. It was all the course was just for myself and my training partner. Um, and that was fantastic. So
That's
managed to finish
incredible.
that. Yeah, it was a
That's
great
incredible.
day. Yeah, yeah.
140.6. Self-supported 140.6. We can't call it Ironman because it's not branded Ironman.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Self-supported 140.6, organized by Polly and the gang.
Right, exactly. And that was the best thing though, is
Wow.
that, it was all just family and friends supported. And then at the end, just a huge celebration. I think everyone else felt like it was their victory too, because they had all really, I mean, if anyone has been to a race before to spectate or to support or volunteer, you know
Yeah.
that in many ways it's harder than doing the race, right? Because you're kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
waiting around in the heat or whatever weather there is, and
And
trying
when
to
did you
stay
do this?
focused.
Which month was this?
So this was actually the same day that the Ironman would have been. So we did it in the end of April 2021. Yeah,
So it was a little warm.
it was warm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was definitely warm.
And which
And
lake?
people were
Which
great.
lake did you use for this?
So we used the Twin Lakes, which is out in Manville.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, I had my bike set up. And so that was part of the bike course to ride back to Sugarland and then do a few loops here in Sugarland to get the full 112 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you guys stick to all the time cutoffs as well, or?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
We did it the real way. Yeah. And we counted the transitions and everything, so it was all very much
Awesome.
that same way. Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. You
The
know,
one rule that we did not stick to, though, which I'm glad we didn't, is that we decided, because so many of my friends, they were so invested in this too, right? Because they had
mm,
seen me train. A lot of them had trained parts of it with me. So they wanted to do little parts of the bike and run course with me. So I said, hey, yeah, the more the merrier. In Ironman, you can't do that. You're not
yeah.
supposed to ride or run with anyone, like,
Mm,
as part of it. So we didn't do any drafting, meaning nobody was right in front of the bike course on me. I didn't
mm,
draft off of anyone and get the aerodynamic advantage on the bike. But that was also part of the fun. I did 20 miles with one friend. My husband came and did many miles with me too on the bike. And then on the run too, I had a few friends who came and did like a few 5Ks with me, a few 5K segments,
yeah.
which is why, like I said, I think my cheeks probably hurt more than any other muscle in my body from the smiling that I was doing the whole time, because having all that love and support out there, it was fantastic. It was a great
Wow.
experience.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I had another guest, Gauri, about a few episodes back, and she's in the Bay Area. Her first I mean, 140.6 was also a self-supported one by a group of friends, and I just find this so fascinating. I was like, wow,
Oh yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
self-supported 140.6. So what if races are getting cancelled? You can do it
Right.
self-supported, right?
Exactly. Especially when you train so much like that. I mean, it's just such
Yeah,
a shame to throw that away, right? So it's
yeah,
yeah. So we loved getting that done. It was really just one of my favorite race, probably my most favorite race memory ever of all the races I've done.
yeah. Congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
And then you went and you came back this year in 2022 and completed it, the actual
Yes, okay.
Ironman, right?
Right. And so then now in 2022 of April, the real race finally happened, so
Mm.
COVID was a little bit under better control. And mind you, I had been training at this point for almost 4 years,
four
because,
years.
I started training in 2018 for that 2019 one that I DNF'd or I did not finish. And then I kind of kept my training going the whole time, right? So I said, no matter what, I am doing this race. This race and I have unfinished business. So
Yes.
I had set up my mind, no matter what, I was going to do it. I was going to finish it. And I knew I was ready. I had finished the one previous year well under the time limit, and I knew I could do it. I was feeling strong. But one of the things that can happen if you're training for so long is you can get injuries, of course, right? And
Mm.
so actually that's what happened. Literally 2 weeks before the Ironman that was going to happen this year in 2022, I developed a stress fracture in my foot,
Ooh.
which is a big problem because the race was only 2 weeks away, and stress fractures, as you know, they take 6 to 8 weeks to heal. This is a big problem.
Yeah.
There were many blessings in this, though. I was very lucky. One is that being a doctor, I had so many friends who were in orthopedics and physical medicine and rehabilitation. All I had to do was pick up a phone, and I was visiting with my doc literally the same day. Was able to get an MRI the next day. Found out that I had this stress fracture, and getting great advice from many different friends that I had in the field. And basically what they said was that this stress fracture was in a strange place in the foot. It was in a bone that's not typically fractured, and it's not considered to be a fully weight-bearing bone in the foot.
Mm.
All of that to say that I spoke with several folks, and they all said, you know what, Polly, it's going to hurt, because at that point, even walking was hurting. I couldn't
Mm.
even really walk very well at that point. Um, they said, it's going to hurt, but if you're crazy enough and you want to do this, you can do this marathon. You can do the whole thing. Because swimming and biking were no problem with my stress fracture. I could do those fine. And they said, you can do the run. and you're not going to hurt yourself. You're not going to have any long-term damage. You're not going to make it worse. You'll be fine. And then you can just do the healing after the race is done. But they both told me, I don't think you can do it. I think it's going to hurt too much. This is going to be too much. You don't know how badly I need to do this race. This is 4 years of training that I put into this. This is going to happen. So I basically, the swim went great. Bike was great. No pain at all. And then I got on the run. In the beginning, all those excitement hormones were going, the adrenaline. I felt great. I was running. I was actually at a good pace, feeling great. But then the pain really, I started to feel it. It started to kick in probably about 10 miles in, which I knew it would. So I had like a few, Tylenols and ibuprofens and things like that if I needed it. And I kind of just took walk breaks when I needed to. I did some run walks to allow the foot to just kind of calm down, the inflammation and everything. And I managed to finish it. I made it through. I said, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I didn't come this far now to let it go. And that was fantastic. It was so meaningful for me to finally cross that finish line. It was slower than it would have been otherwise, of course, because I had to do much more walking than I would have normally. Normally, running is my strong suit. That's the part that I love the most, and that's the part that I'm usually the fastest at. So I was definitely slower, but ended up finishing it in, gosh, what was my time? It was around like 14 hours and 50 minutes or so. I actually don't even remember anymore, but it was a little bit of a longer time, but still finished within the time for each leg. And was super, super excited about it. It meant a lot, that one, because I had to work for that one, definitely.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. What a story.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yes.
That truly is the Iron woman. I mean, Iron Man, but
no, I know. I think more than anything, right, it's the iron mind. I think, if you tell yourself you can do something, and physically, of course, if it's safe, which my doctors had told me it was safe. I think really you can pull yourself through anything, And then again, I always get back to my kids, right? Getting back to my kids. I've heard my kids say several times after that, you know what? If mommy did an Ironman on a broken foot, I can do this. Just seeing
That's
that.
awesome.
And I think we underestimate the power of our mind, right? Like it's easy to give up sometimes, but if you can push through, the satisfaction of doing it is just, it's indescribable. That feeling that you get.
Yeah. Totally awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
That is a very inspiring story for those people who are listening, and just the realm of possibility here, right? For someone who dealt with fear of water to have learned swimming and then signed up for a 140.6 and not be able to finish, then not be able to do, and it's like, wow, that's like both physical and mental endurance epitomized here.
Right. Yeah. I think the mental part for most of us, right, is probably the hardest part of doing those types of long endurance events. I think when you do any of those endurance events, most of us, our mind at some point will go to a dark place, of like, oh man, I'm so tired, should I give this up? But I think learning to push through that helps you learn to push through so many other things that happen, because we all have so many challenges, that come up in life, right? So I think it carries through to everything that we do.
So, it also boils down to quality of training, because I had a friend on the podcast who made an interesting point as to, what is confidence, right? What is confidence? He was talking about confidence, and he made a point about confidence being, doing something and realizing that you can do it. That's confidence, right? So, and how does that come? It comes by putting yourself in uncomfortable positions and uncomfortable situations, and you don't do that in the race day. You do that in training, right?
Exactly.
And this friend of mine is a coach. He's a coach. He's a triathlon coach. Actually, he's 80 years old. He's 80 years old.
Wow.
Dwayne, he was probably my third guest in the podcast. He's 80 years old. He's a triathlete, and this is what he said. He said, "You want to put yourself in uncomfortable, situations in training, so that you build that confidence, right?"
Definitely. Yes, right? Yes. And I can't agree with that more. Like when we were doing that, do it yourself iron, the 140.6 that we did at home, um, I had uh, basically rode the course, the bike course ahead of time to be sure that it was, going to be a reasonable course. And we had made some changes on the bike course based on little things that we would see. So we knew that on race day it was going to work. And I remember one of those training rides. Oh man, I got literally 3 flat tires that day,
Mm,
and just had to go through the process of, being on the side of the road, fixing it, all of those things in
mm,
the heat. Very demoralizing, right? But when you finish it still, when you manage to overcome all that and still do it, then you realize, look, if I can do that, oh, I can definitely get through, a basic race day.
mhm.
So I couldn't agree more. I think the training is where everything goes wrong and where you learn everything and make all your mistakes. But then that makes everything else so much more meaningful when you've actually figured it out, right? And you do
Yep.
things smarter and better later on. That's what gives you that confidence.
Yep. Yep. Great. And so, for someone like you, who is a mother, you have a family, a husband, kids, how do you balance time? I mean, Ironman takes obviously what, 12, 13 hours of training a week. So
Yes.
how did you balance that?
Right. So for me, pretty much all of my training was early in the morning. So pretty much every day I just got used to the idea of waking up at 4:30, getting in my workouts. And the nice thing is that the training program that I used, I think it did not overtrain me, which is
Okay.
something that if anyone is thinking about doing any of these long endurance sports, that's something to look out for. You don't have to do long efforts, many days of the week in order to get your body ready for this kind of an event. For me, most of the training was 1 hour every morning that I could do, which was very
Okay.
doable. Um, I could wake up early, get it done, whether it was the swim, the bike, or the run, and then, shower and then get on with my day, taking
Hmm.
kids to school, getting to work, all that kind of stuff. And the rest of the day was mine too. So then when I came back, it was basically a normal day of making dinner, spending time with the kids, seeing how their day was. And then the trick was to get to bed early too, though. So
Hmm.
I think for me, I'm a big proponent of sleep. I tell
Hmm.
everyone this, that sleep really matters because that's when our body is recovering from all of this work that we're putting our body
Hmm.
through.
Hmm.
As I'm doing these high intensity workouts in the morning, they may be short for 1 hour, but I am building up a sweat. I am getting my heart rate up there. Those are hard
Hmm.
workouts. And my body cannot absorb that training unless I get good rest at night, unless I sleep
Hmm.
appropriately.
Hmm.
So I make sure to always get good sleep, wake up early, get all my things done, and then really I have the whole rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I really didn't feel like it ate into my the rest of my time very much. But it does mean that I wasn't doing things like I almost never watch TV, for example.
Mm.
You know?
Good.
um, yeah, so I guess you kind of give up some other
Yeah.
leisure time that you might because it has to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the sleep and the exercise were so important.
Yeah. Makes sense. Great tips there.
Hmm.
And what's next for you?
So now my stress fracture is finally healed. I'm
Mm.
back to running. It took about a good, I don't know, I think 8 weeks until I finally got out of that boot and am now able to run and a lot of physical therapy and all of that. So now I'm working my way up to again run my favorite marathon, the Houston Chevron Marathon in
Hmm.
January. And right now my PR on the marathon is about 3:50, 3 hours
Mm.
and 50 minutes. So I need to get that down by about 10 minutes. If I get it down to 3 hours and 40 minutes, I will have a Boston qualifying time. So
Mm.
this is the next goal. So I'm currently working on trying to get faster, find those few extra minutes, and hopefully in January I can qualify.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the best on that one. Make
Yes,
sure
thank you.
we'll cheer you for that. Terrific. Hey, so I think we covered a fair bit of ground in terms of your journey that started into running, then on to triathlons, and how you've kind of managed all of it. And we're kind of coming to an end of our conversation here. And I do have a fun Q&A round with my guests. So are you ready for that?
Sure. Sounds great.
Okay. Let's do that. So, well, for all endurance athletes, one of the things that we all love is food, because food keeps us alive and keeps us active. What's your favorite junk food?
Oh, I have lots of those. My favorite junk food, the thing that I sometimes crave when I probably have not gotten enough calories in, is chili cheese fries. I
Chili
love
cheese
those.
fries. All right.
Yes, yes. We have a great place by my house that makes the most amazing chili cheese fries. So when I was training for the Ironman, that was like at least a once a month thing.
Good one.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Oh,
qualifies as a good junk food.
yes, yes.
What's your favorite pre-race food?
Pre-race. Well, always, every single morning, no matter what, whether training or racing, I always have chocolate milk. I call it
Hmm.
my elixir of life. I think it gives me the perfect amount of protein, carbohydrates, exactly what I need. But then food-wise, I'll also usually have oatmeal and a banana too before I
So
start.
do you have a carbo loading ritual for pre-race, few days before the race? Any? Uh,
Yeah, and
uh,
I
uh,
always eat lots of carbs. There's not one specific meal I do,
hmm,
but I tend to do either pasta or I love having rice and curry. Like I do a lot of rice with chicken curry or
hmm,
paneer. I love that too.
hmm,
Luckily, my stomach is pretty sturdy, so I don't have to worry too much about what I eat. It's typically
hmm,
going to do well.
hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Um, on during training, what music or podcasts?
Oh, yeah. Actually, most of the time, nothing.
Nothing.
I actually really enjoy running and just having the time in my own head.
Hmm,
So a lot of times I don't listen to anything, but I do sometimes for the very long runs, I will take some music.
hmm.
My favorite is Panic at the Disco. I love them. They really get me going when I'm running.
Yeah, I've listened to them. No, I mean I've listened my daughter's friends' favorite uh, band, so I've listened to some of those songs because of that.
Yeah, they're my favorite on the trainer too. When I'm on the bike, in the indoor trainer, they're great. They really get me in a mode. So much so that if I'm in the car and I'm listening to them, I have the urge to start running or biking.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like a
yeah.
conditioned dog now almost.
Absolutely nice. And a bucket list race for you. And
Ah, yes. What I really have in my mind that I would love to do is there's a half Ironman that happens out in New Zealand that looks
ooh,
beautiful.
wow.
Yes, and I would love it. One of the reasons, aside from the beauty, and I want to go to New Zealand, another reason I want to do it is because it's in an ocean. And actually, at this
Hmm,
point, I haven't done any ocean swims in a race. And it's still
hmm.
something that's a little bit scary for me. So I hope to eventually train and be comfortable enough to do that one.
Yep. And you live by Galveston.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
If you can swim in that water. Yes.
yes. Yes, yes. All right. My last question, which I ask all my guests, is if you made a movie of your life, what category, what genre would you put it in? And who would you hire to play your character?
Ah, interesting, huh? What would it be? More than anything, I think I have to say that I know a lot of people say this, but I really think it's true that I've been really just so blessed throughout my life, to have so many wonderful people who've come in and out of my life and given me so many amazing gifts in different ways. That I feel like really it's been a very happy life. I mean, it would probably be like a romantic comedy, just something
Mm,
very upbeat and happy, which is funny coming from an oncologist. But in some ways, I think, that part of my life, it helps me appreciate the good so much more, right? Because I
mhm,
see people every day who are struggling with so much.
mm,
It makes you so grateful for everything, for your
mhm,
health, for your
mhm,
family, for all the things that we might otherwise take for granted, right?
mhm.
So yeah, I'd say overall, I'm very blessed. I feel like it'd probably be a very upbeat romantic comedy. The person to play me, oh wow, that's a tough one. Gosh. Um, I don't know. One of my favorite actresses who I like to watch her a lot because I think she's just so cute and funny is Meg Ryan. I could see Meg Ryan doing it, I guess.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great pick. Great pick.
Mhm.
All right, you did well in the Q&A. We learned a few more things about you in the process, so thanks for sharing that. And so we kind of coming to a wrap up. I want to give you the last word. Any final message that you want to give our audience?
Yeah, no, just for anyone out there who's, been kind of tinkering with the idea of doing something that seems kind of tough, from an endurance standpoint, I would say stop thinking about it and just do it. I think the
Mm,
minute you sign up for it, you'll be surprised what you're able to figure out once you realize that it's there. Having just a little bit of pressure and pushing yourself out of that comfort zone is so valuable. And then in that process, I think figuring out what the priorities are in your life that are important are also really
mm,
important. Not getting hung up on the small things and just realizing that, your health, your family, these are the important things most likely for you. And just prioritize those every day. Life is too
yeah,
short to worry about other things.
yeah, yeah. Well said. Well said. Terrific. So, Polly, thanks again. It was wonderful talking to you and learning. I definitely found it very inspirational. I mean, how many people sign up for Ironman and keep at it for 4 years? I thought
Yeah.
that's completely unique. Completely
Yeah.
unique. Amazing story.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot and good luck with your attempt at the BQ in Jan, and
Thanks.
we will root for you. Uh, we'll let you go and enjoy the rest of the afternoon and stay in touch. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Sandosh, for having me on.
Thanks.